Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I would like first of all to provide a context and backdrop so that we can understand where we are going in seeking to take steps towards the implementation of the revised 10-point plan of CARICOM, which has just been circulated for reparatory justice. And to see how we can carry forward this work. But as we all know, numbers are not taken in the abstract. You have to have a framework, you have to have some context, and I want to do that. In 2013, I took this issue to CARICOM. Among other things, which CARICOM agreed upon at the time, and I must also put on record that the then Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the current Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, was in the chair. I flew to Trinidad and told her what I want to do. We agreed as to how we'd proceed, and then the rest is history. We decided that we'll make the item a permanent item on the calendar, on the agenda of CARICOM. We decided between then and 2014 that we'll set up the institutional framework, CARICOM Reparations Commission, encourage the formation of national reparations commissions, and to have the CRC draw up a framework plan which CARICOM approved called the 10-point plan, which has now been revised and which has been circulated because there's a prime ministerial subcommittee on reparations, which is chaired by Barbados, had a very important meeting on the 12th of June, and this was adopted, what has been circulated. What are we about when we seek reparations? The first thing is to grasp, as CARICOM agreed, that reparations is first of all an international human rights and justice matter. And within the frame that it is an international human rights and justice matter, in the case of the Caribbean, the quest for reparatory justice is to repair the legacies of underdevelopment which can be sourced, and which we indeed source, to native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. Not complicated. You distill it from the historical work by Hilary Beckles and others. It is an international human rights and justice issue. And within that context, for the Caribbean, it is a quest to repair the legacies, the contemporary legacies of underdevelopment which we source to native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. Immediately, that framing takes care of the objection by the Conservative and Labour parties in the United Kingdom and elsewhere that reparations, let us not look to the past, let us look to the future. And our answer is, I agree with you, let us look to the future. And we say also, we don't want to be living in the past, because for us, the present is the past. So that takes care of the matter, because it's the real life legacies which we trace to a native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. And this, as Hilary has pointed out, is intergenerational. It happened over several generations. Therefore, reparatory justice has to be intergenerational. It can't be for persons today, because the repairing will not take place only today. No. We know that $20 million pounds paid to the quote-unquote the slave owners, which was just less than half of what they valued their capital for. But we must remember that those 20 million pounds represented 5% of the gross domestic product of Britain in 1834, and represented between 40 and 50% of the revenue collected by the British government. So I'm putting things within a context. Now, the 10-point plan, as you will see, covers a wide range of issues, from psychological trauma, issues of memory and culture, to health education, to actual money to do repairing, debt cancellation, and the like. There have been several stabs, metaphorically, at this issue, the compensation dimension of it. And that, Hilary mentioned the Brattle report, which spoke in terms of 23 trillion pounds. And they had a wider frame than many other entities put it forward. Michael Banner, who has written a book recently on Britain's debt, has different calculations. But our people have to come to some clear number. This, from the repair campaign standpoint, and repair is an NGO with offices in Dublin, in London, and in Jamaica. And it is one of the entities recognized in this report with which the CARICOM Reparations Commission interfaces, and we work together. Because this reparations business, since it's an international human rights and justice matter, it has several different streams. And it is our business for those streams to come together in a mighty river for this great cause. And for those who are doubtful, next month I'm going to be 80, and I'm not doubtful, because great causes have never been won by doubtful men and women. And this is a relay, as Hilary gave that historical outline. You notice how we pull everything together, all the things we come in together. So, the reparations, the repair campaign, of which I am a senior advisor, and since I'm not junior, it's fair that I be senior. And it is factual that I'm an elder. What we have been doing is to look at the budgets, and we can always refine that, of all the CARICOM governments, and to see from the budgets which are presented and from the expenditure which you have, we put matrices in relation to particular programs as outlined in those budgets as a starting point for a period of 50 years. At the same time, because you're addressing the legacies of underdevelopment, there are other frameworks in the United Nations that address legacies of underdevelopment. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this matter has also got to do the quantification, but specifically earmarked, not the general Sustainable Development Goals, but particular aspects of this which we are sourcing to native genocide and enslavement of African bodies, which can be funded by the countries who got the wealth from the Caribbean. Britain in the case of the former British colonies, Suriname in the case of Holland, Holland in the case of Suriname, and this very special case of Haiti in relation to France. And what we have done for each country, we have done work, as Earl Busquet has pointed out, is to have socioeconomic reparation justice plans for every country. This is a first step. It is not complete, but it is a contribution to this important discussion on the quantification dimensions and fitting in absolutely with the CARICOM 10-point plan. For example, there's the view that we shouldn't take the whole of the budget, we should take out particular aspects of the capital budget and particular aspects of the recurrent budget and quantify them in a manner which is not going to bring you any lesser number than if you take the whole budget. You just weight things differently, and particularly weight them in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted in 2015, September, at the United Nations, they go to 2030, they're now to 2035. But this dimension, which we are talking about, will not go to 2035, but will go beyond for years. We can decide when we finally, with the governments, you do it if it's a 50-year or beyond the 50-year generational plan. But this is not to be something discretionary, as June pointed out, because a lot of aid is discretionary. This is not aid. This is something different. It is not something voluntary. It is something which is negotiated, where we come to a very important point. The repair campaign, being a global NGO, transatlantic NGO, we have no representative mandate. Governments have to negotiate. But we are working with the governments. And this matter is not a matter which is to be subject to any internal partisan political division. On this matter, we had to be completely at one. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. And we have to persuade, in one form or another, the intellectual, the elites in Europe and the populations in order to get this matter, to get them to the table, or in the case of Jamaica, which is on the 7th, the anniversary of the Zong massacre, is making a presentation to the Privy Council, to King Charles, for adjudication. I'm sure at CARICOM here, and David would know this, the issue which came from the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee was that consideration be given to making a preparation for an application for an advisory opinion to the International Court of Justice. Just want to make one final point, or two final points. First, for us to be clearly consistent in what we are doing, we have to look for every opportunity. When St. Vincent and Grenadines was on the Security Council for 2020-2021, and in the month of November 2020, when we chaired the Security Council, we identify a signature issue which we will address during our month of chairmanship. And we selected the issue of non-traditional drivers of insecurity. And the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines identified as one of our weaknesses about a non-traditional driver of insecurity, the absence of reparations for native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. And Hillary presented for the first time to the Security Council, not the General Assembly, the issue on reparations, because not having it is going to contribute to insecurity in these islands. We have reached a stage. The last point, Earl, is this. Organizationally, Hillary is correct. We are at a different phase now in the struggle, particularly since the March 25th resolution. Our organization to address this struggle is not yet at a level, David, to match this new profile. So we have to, as I suggested, I attended by invitation the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee, the last one. I said we have to put more money to the CRC and we have to give it a secretariat. If we are serious about this thing as a defining issue, we have to put money to it. We have gone past the advocacy stage. We are at a different stage. And similarly, the National Reparatory Commissions, we have to resource them better. If we do all those things, we're going to be able to get a lot of this work which Repair has started to do. And Repair has a fair amount of resources, clearly not unlimited resources, but we have been doing work in this regard and on the sustainable development goals. Between now and when the Commonwealth Heads of Government meet in November in Antigua, the very important stage in post. Before that, there's going to be the third Regional Reparations Conference in Barbados on the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, coincide with the CPL and the CPL finals. Antigua had the second, St. Vincent had the first one in September 2013. There are things which Hillary's CRC doing this month in London. We did some things last month in the Repair in London. We're going to be doing something fairly significant in early September, prior to the regional conference. And in all of them, it's very important that both the CRC and the Repair campaign work together, and we work very much so in step with that. Tomorrow, a draft will be presented for consideration by the Saint Lucia government for the Saint Lucia Socio-Economic Reparatory Justice Plan. This is not written in stone. It is a contribution towards the important conversation of quantification. Thank you.